Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. Today I am on icebergcharts.com, and I'm going to be looking at an iceberg, obviously, and I'm going to be looking at the wrestling match and moments, misspelled moments there, Iceberg. For no other reason except this video is going to be uh, uploaded during WrestleMania weekend, which is perhaps one of those weekends in the world where wrestling receives the most public attention it does. So I thought, yeah, why not do it? My initial idea, however, was to cover the entire iceberg, all of this in one sitting. However, given it might take 3 hours, um, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do that because I don't know how many people would really be interested in listening to me going into that kind of a deep dive in the most interesting or bizarre or just outright weird, but still mythologized to a certain extent moments of this particular variant of entertainment. So instead, I'm gonna do roughly one video each of the for each of the tiers, each of the levels of this iceberg. Don't worry, I'm not gonna turn this channel into a wrestling channel. In fact, for now, I can't even say if I'm going to do. I can't even say if I'm going to do these. This entire chart in successive videos. But I will cover all of it eventually. And let's start right at the top with some of the greatest moments in our sport. Yeah, there's a lot of misspellings around here. Sorry. There are actually a whole bunch of wrestling icebergs I could have chosen, but I thought this one was the one I could that had both enough content variety on it that it would be interesting, but it's also simple enough that I can discuss its topics with some level of authority. As for what my credentials to discuss this topic are, or what my history of pro wrestling is, I'll put a link to the playlist in the iCard. You should know how that works by now. You've been on YouTube for long enough. Anyway, without further ado, Tier 1. CM Punk Pipe Bomb. This this refers to a promo or a part of the show where a wrestler just talks about whatever is on their mind. The wrestler in question being CM Punk, and the promo in question was about the state of WWE, the biggest pro wrestling company around, and it ruffled a lot of feathers in a lot of in a lot of very interesting ways, and really brought a lot of attention and a lot of drama to the sport as a whole, and therefore it's been referred to as one of the best promos of all time. So it definitely deserves to be right at the top here of this iceberg. Right next to it, we have Austin 316 KOTR, that's King of the Ring, promo. Incidentally, this is also the sidebar image. This guy here. This is Stone Cold Steve Austin after he won the King of the Ring, which is a single elimination tournament that is carried out on a semi-yearly basis by the same WWE. This is I forget who interviews him, but he kind of looks like Lex Luger, even though I think Lex Luger worked for the WCW, who was the competitor to WWE at the time. Anyway, as Steve Austin was the winner of the tournament, he got to do another promo. He got to say how awesome he is. And during that promo, he mentioned Austin 3:16, which is actually a rib on a Bible verse, because the guy he beat in the final of the King of the Ring tournament had a gimmick, or a persona of a born again Christian. The verse in question he's riffing on is actually John 3:16, and he instead says that Austin 3:16 says, "I just whooped your ass." So yeah, it was. I actually saw that that promo. It was entertaining. It deserves to be here. Next up, we actually have some matches. Kenny Omega. There should be an E here. This will all the misspellings will get me mad. Anyway, Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada, 1-4. Yeah, this refers, for the first time we're moving away from the WWE, even though a lot of the Iceberg will still feature WWE moments, because they are they're the most visible promotion, so to speak. Um, with a look at a series of matches between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada. Most of these matches took place for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, which is the main event title of New Japan Pro Wrestling, the biggest Japanese pro wrestling organization. However, the third of these matches actually took place during the G1, which is a tournament NJPW runs on an yearly basis. And these matches were recognized for being of outstanding quality, of really showcasing what these guys can do, and bringing on a lot of very intense and uh, very strong drama, and also a lot of great athletic feats during the whole thing. I don't think I've seen the whole series. I think I've only seen match 2 and 4. But let me just say, match 2 and 4, yeah, they uh, they blow a lot of what I've seen out of the water. Um, they are also somewhat infamous in the community because because of the rating they've received from Dave Meltzer, who is the most well-respected pro wrestling journalist in the business. Uh, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about them. If you have the time, go check them out. All of those matches run fairly long. I'll have to say the shortest is the shortest is the third one, and and even that is almost like 25 or 30 minutes long. So yeah, take your time, because you will need it. Next up, back to the WWE, we got Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, 1996 Survivor Series. I checked. This is one I actually had to look into, because I didn't know it. I didn't have it fresh in my head. Uh, Apparently, these two guys had a number one contendership match for the WWE, or at the time WWF championship at 1996 Survivor Series. Um, However, I don't know anything about that match, but when I think about these two guys, there is one other match between them that really stands out, namely the one at WrestleMania 13, which was an I Quit match. A match that can only end when one of the wrestlers says I quit. And this match became infamous because Stone Cold Steve Austin, i.e. this guy right here, um, decided he would rather pass out than say I quit, and that showed that showed like a lot of grit, and that really led to him becoming much more popular, and a much more interesting figure for most people to follow. Next up, we have the Scott Steiner math promo. This is the first visit to a new federation, Impact Wrestling, and truth be told, this moment was kind of panned when it first occurred, but in retrospect, people recognize not necessarily that it's good, but that it's funny, and therefore, if it's funny, it's entertaining, and and therefore that's really all that matters. Kind of like the Star Wars prequels, if that makes sense. People panned them in the beginning, but then they saw them a few times more and were like, there actually is something to this. And the basis around the Scott Steiner math promo is that Scott was trying to hype up one of his future matches, and he was talking about how he is mathematically guaranteed to win, and doing a whole bunch of convoluted, crazy, stupid calculations that showed that he had over 100% chance of winning, and that kind of stuff. If I sound rambly, Scott Steiner rambled worse than me during that promo, and it was somehow still fun, and it was still uh, notorious enough to make itself stand out as one of the greatest moments in pro wrestling. Next up, we're going back to New Japan Pro Wrestling with Kazuchika Okada versus Hiroshi Tanahashi matches. I think you recognize Kazuchika Okada. He was in this series of matches as well. These matches, however, Okada and Tanahashi have had a few more matches than just four, and a lot of them were also for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Some of them were for contendership to that title, and however, most of them were directly for the title itself. And most of them also stand out as great displays of quality and athleticism. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen enough of them to where I can say, yeah, I get the point of them. I get why they're as well regarded, and they're indeed among the greatest moments. And now going to AEW, the Young Bucks versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. I'm kind of surprised AEW is on here because they're actually very recent federation. They only started in 2019, and then again, a lot of this Iceberg kind of has somewhat of a recency bias, I think. We'll get to that in later videos, perhaps. Anyway, this match, the Young Bucks versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. Again, we got Kenny Omega here. These four guys are actually part of the same stable, or stable being a group of pro wrestlers who decide to, for whatever reason, work together, use similar logos, similar names in order to boost their own prestige. Only apparently they've had kind of a falling out while they were operating within AEW, and that falling out led to this match between these four guys. And this one is a match I haven't seen, but I've heard from pretty much every commentator who covered it that it was a great match. So I'm not gonna talk about it any further. Next up, John Cena versus CM Punk Money in the Bank match. Going back to the WWE, and you should recognize the name CM Punk again. This P should be capitalized, but whatever. There are a whole bunch of capitalization mistakes here. This match isn't actually a Money in the Bank match, but it took place at a pay-per-view or a special event called Money in the Bank. And it actually directly followed the pipe bomb that CM Punk gave. He was named the number one contender for the WWE Championship, which was held by John Cena at the time. And then also this match took place in the match and the special event took place in Chicago, which is where CM Punk comes from. Actually, CM initially stood for. I don't want to say it stood for Chicago Made, but he has said it could be applied as such. I think initially it was supposed to stand for Chick Magnet, but whatever. Back to this match, which I have actually been able to see, and a few times actually, and I have to say it was a pretty good match, and that is a pretty good match. Is it as good as some of these other matches I've mentioned? I think I can say yes. Is it worthy of being called the great among the greatest moments? Yes, it is. Tetsuya Naito Redemption. This is less okay. This is less a moment and uh, more an entire angle or an entire storyline. A whole slew of events that you know uh, led to the elevation of the sport as a whole and of one career in particular. That career being that of Tetsuya Naito. Going back to NJPW here, uh, uh, Tetsuya or Naito. I'll I might just go between these two names. Started out as a major wrestler uh, under the gimmick of being kind of like this uh, genius this genius performer, as in someone who could execute a lot of moves excellently. However, that particular gimmick didn't really stick to a lot of people, to the point where even though he had some strong initial successes, the audiences thoroughly rejected him as a champion uh, or as credible wrestler. And for that reason, he was sent on an excursion, so to speak, to New Japan's uh, partner federations, partner wrestling promotions, and then when he came back with the came back as the leader of the Los Ingobernables de Japón, and had more of a gangster gimmick and a renewed swagger. And throughout several years, he was able to um, showcase that renewed swagger and that renewed confidence, and managed to climb his way back to where you could call him one of the four pillars of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he has since held the main championship of New Japan Pro Wrestling, the IWGP Heavyweight title, if you remember that, and also the Intercontinental, which is kind of their second title at the same time. So he has been through a career of a lot of ups and downs, and yeah, his efforts to really reinvent himself are definitely worthy of being included up here. Four pillars of AJPW series of matches. This one, I'll admit, this is one I have no clue over, so I'm no clue about. So I'm just gonna go by context clues. I already mentioned that Tetsuya Naito is one of the four pillars of NJPW, i.e., one of the four most important wrestlers of that company. I assume something similar is at play here. AJPW, or All Japan Pro Wrestling, has four wrestlers they are not I'm not gonna say building their shows around, but that do stand out as per how effective they are as wrestlers in the ring, or when cutting promos, talking to the audiences, or just in general talking to each other and hyping up their motivations in their matches. And and therefore I think it's pretty clear to say that these four guys have had some pretty good matches together, and that is why this shows up over here. As I don't know who these guys are, I can safely say I haven't really seen any of their matches. AJPW is not really within my sphere of interest most of the time. So yeah, not gonna comment on it. I'm just gonna move on. Uh, you two, I'm an ass man. Oh, sorry, I didn't do that right. I'm an ass man. That was even worse. Never mind. This is a this is these are the first words of the theme of Mr. Ass. Mr. Ass being a gimmick that Billy Gunn used, and Billy Gunn throughout his pro wrestling career went through a lot of gimmicks. And Mr. Ass was I'm not gonna say his standout moment, but it was one of his more memorable, and it was definitely his funniest. And let's be honest, if you hear someone singing "I'm an ass man," you're gonna you're gonna yeah, you're gonna find it funny. You're gonna uh, enjoy seeing him, regardless of regardless of what you think about the maturity of that statement. That being said, I don't think Mr. Ass himself ever called himself an ass man, but that is just part of his. That was part of his theme song. Uh, and yeah, I know it's kind of crass, but it was the '90s, and it was somewhat more acceptable in the at the time WWF to be able to go crass. Moving on to something more dignified, Minoru Suzuki giving respect to Jushin Liger before his retirement. Going back to New Japan Pro Wrestling, Minoru Suzuki is a has been described by fans of the New Japan promotion as a murder grandpa, as in he is a guy who's known for being he is a guy known for being very old, very angry, and very brutal inside the ring. He doesn't give a fuck about respect or about pedigree or about history. All he wants is to cause you pain, regardless of what that looks like. So, and Jushin Liger or more fully Jushin Thunder Liger, is a wrestler with a surprisingly long career in in the business, and I think he's known as one of the best opening match guy in the world. So there are people who would watch events or even special events that had Jushin Thunder Liger in the opening, even though they didn't care about any of the rest of the special event. They just wanted to see Liger because that's how good he was. Anyway, these two got into a little spat, so to say, a feud, a rivalry going right as Jushin Liger was about to retire, and I think Jushin himself said that he wanted his last match to be against Minoru Suzuki, and who while a very brutal wrestler, is also a very proficient wrestler. So yeah, I can very much understand that, and the fact that Minoru Suzuki gave his respects to Jushin Liger, or just in general was not just the brutal asshole he generally is. That is a very meaningful moment, and and therefore it yeah, it deserves to be not just on the iceberg, but in this part of the iceberg. Moving on, but for the first time we have some female names here. Aja Kong versus Manami Toyota series of matches. I have to admit I don't know who either of these either of these ladies are, but if I were to not suspect, speculate, I would say they are from AJWPW, All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, and they've had a series of matches, but then probably for the main title of that promotion as well. Again, I haven't seen them, so I can't comment on them. PWG Bullet Club versus Matt Sydal, Ricochet, and Will Ospreay. Once again, visiting a new promotion, this time being PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Gorilla as in the asymmetrical warfare tactic, not gorilla as in the big ape. This this promotion is somewhat interesting given the fact that that it is promoted, or rather scripted, if you prefer, by the people who also perform in in their shows or in their special events most of the time, and that has allowed them to retain a to retain a lot of flexibility and a lot of visibility, despite in spite of the budgets they generally work with. And but regardless, I'm not here to talk about their business model, even though I think it's quite interesting. I instead want to talk about this particular match, Bullet Club versus these guys. It's not all of Bullet Club versus these guys. It's three guys from Bullet Club versus these three guys. Bullet Club is the most well-known stable in modern pro wrestling. If you'll remember what I said earlier, the stable is a group of people who band together under a similar banner in order to gain more prestige for themselves and each other. And and this match in particular is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the most well-rated six-man tag team match of all time, or at least in accordance to Dave Meltzer, who we'll remember I've mentioned earlier as being one of the most important pro wrestling journalists. He actually has he's most well known for using a match rating system based on stars. And I think this is the only six-man tag team championship, no, six-man tag team match to receive a 5-star rating. As for the other highly rated matches on this Iceberg, well, I'll only point towards this series of matches. And a lot of the matches in this series are 5 stars or 5-star matches, and pretty much, and also every match on in this series between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada has received more than 5 stars. That's what makes it somewhat infamous. The fact that this series of matches broke a rating system that has actually stood in place for what was at that time decades. Anyway, going back to the bottom of the tier, returning to the WWE, or at the time WWF, Mankind winning WWF Championship for the first time. This refers to obviously a wrestler called Mankind, who won a WWF Championship. Why is this particular title win important? Well, because that win in particular marks a turning point in what was referred to as the actual next entry in this Iceberg, the Monday Night Wars. There have actually been 2 Monday Night Wars, but the more well known of those, and I think, and definitely the one that this portion of the Iceberg is referring to, is are the Monday Night Wars between WWF and WCW. These they weren't wars per se, as in they weren't actively hostile to each other, but they did both run pro wrestling shows at the same time, or within the same time slot, a Monday night time slot. So both companies were trying to outdo each other, trying to come up with more spectacular, more interesting, more engaging, more gripping things to have happen throughout their shows. And for the most part, WCW actually, at least initially, WCW was more victorious. They led, they were hovering over WWF in terms of their ratings for 83 weeks in a row. So yeah, this was a pretty extended conflict. The event that really led to the war turning the tide, so to speak, was in fact this particular title change, because Mankind was very well respected. He had a great connection to the audience, and he was very easy to like, very sympathetic. And also, as soon as WCW mentioned that, Mankind Mankind, who was kind of just a lame wrestler, or they call him a lame wrestler, just won a major title. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. It's just a bad move. Turns out it was totally not a bad move, and in fact, when a lot of people heard the WCW guys say that Mankind won, they immediately changed the channel, and therefore immediately um, changed the title to War, or or at least that's the story I've received. Whether whether or not that is true, or whether or not the war wouldn't have changed on its own eventually, that is that is kind of hard to say. Regardless, still these two together do deserve to be not just on this iceberg, but also in this tier. And finally, for the greatest moments, we have All In 2018, biggest independent wrestling show. By independent, this means that means that this particular wrestling show or special event wasn't really organized by any one federation in particular. It was organized. It was actually organized more or less on a dare, because I think someone on Twitter asked as the previously mentioned Dave Meltzer, if there is any chance of a promotion outside of the WWE, who was at the time the only major promotion um, in in North America. If anyone else in North America could have a show with an attendance of over 10,000. Dave Meltzer said that's not possible, and one particular independent wrestler called Cody Rhodes, who later went on to be a co-founder of AEW, said that took that as a challenge and accepted it. He did receive some assistance from one particular promotion called Ring of Honor, but the matches there weren't really sanctioned by Ring of Honor. They were just, whatever happens, and they put on a surprisingly star-studded lineup for this show, and they managed to surpass not just an attendance of 10,000, but of 20,000, and that really this particular event really ignited the imagination and the interest of a lot of people in pro wrestling, and led, among other things, to the formation of AEW, into a more competitive in general wrestling ecosystem within North America. And yeah, that was it. That was tier 1 of the wrestling matches and moments iceberg. Sometime later, I'll delve into the next tiers. So, starting with tier 2, wrestling is fun and sometimes wacky. Until then, however, I would like to say thank you very much for your attention. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and maybe even share it wherever you think others will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to add to what it is I just said, and I sure hope you do, the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.